June, what did we learn in court today?
Well, you know, I think we learned sort of what we knew. There was nothing astonishing that came out at opening statements. The prosecution tried to paint this as a criminal conspiracy, and he mentioned Donald Trump, Michael Cohen, and David Pecker, who is the National Enquirer, the head of National Enquirer, being involved in this conspiracy, and he talked about that, whereas the defense tried to downplay the whole thing. The defense attorney at one point said, "What on earth is a crime? The 34 counts are really just 34 pieces of paper." And I think one thing we learned is that the defense, much of the defense, is going to be an attack on Michael Cohen, who is the star witness for the prosecution. They went after him really hard. They said he was obsessed with President Trump. He was disbarred. He's a convicted felon and a convicted perjurer. So I think that's where we see the case going.
David Pecker got on the stand, at least for a moment, right? What are they going to say about the first witness?
Well, you know, I think he's a great witness to be there first because he doesn't carry the baggage that Michael Cohen does, and he can set out. So they were sort of starting today, we're talking about basics, about the National Enquirer, about checkbook journalism. And I think the idea with the prosecution, too, was to get a witness on, one of their witnesses before the jury broke for the day, instead of having the defense, what the defense said, in the minds of jurors. So I think, you know, he's going to be a pretty powerful witness if he says what the prosecution says he will say. That's gonna
He was granted immunity back in 2018, June, when investigators were looking into this, catch and kill scheme. And this had to do with the Karen McDougal story, $150,000 to bury her story of having an affair with Donald Trump. Does that granting of immunity in that investigation give him any particular standing in this case now?
Well, you know, I think that it's going to be brought out on the defense that he was granted immunity, and that's why he's testifying. But that happens, you know, every day across the country in trials, state trials, federal trials. So I don't think it's really going to have much of an impact here. And I think that he's going to really be the witness that's going to be able to set the whole thing out, because coming up, as you know, Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal is going to testify as well. So I think that, you know, he's going to be, if he holds up on cross, which I don't know what the defense, I really don't know what the defense has to attack him with besides the fact that he has turned, you know, he's a turncoat witness, that whole thing. So, you know, we'll see. They started out with him, so that means they have a lot of faith in him presenting their case.
Right. Yeah, that's why I ask about his credibility. I'm fascinated in advance to hear from him. June, tomorrow, Judge Merchan holds a hearing on the gag order. What's going to happen?
Wow, that is a tough one. The problem is that Judge Merchan doesn't have many things he can do to Donald Trump right now. He's not going to jail him. I mean, he could, but that's absolutely not going to happen. He can fine him $1,000 for each of these occurrences, but it's really important that the judge make it clear to Donald Trump that he can't do what he's been doing. He can't, especially because we see what happens with the jurors here. If the jurors are mentioned, it's going to be really a problem for the prosecution if they start to lose jurors because of what's said about them or because they're afraid of what might be said about them. So I think the judge is going to try to make it clear what has to happen, and maybe there'll be a fine, but I doubt it'll be much more than that. We'll see. Okay,
got it. And then the next, as far as moving on with the trial, that's not till Thursday, right? We've got a half day for Passover today. We've got the gag order tomorrow. Wednesday's off, and Thursday is our next day of focus.
Right. There might actually be some testimony tomorrow. I'm not sure, but there might be some testimony. The gag order takes place at 9:30. So after that, they could bring David Pecker back and do that. Otherwise, it'll be on Thursday. You're right.